Anybody that knows my next guest knows what a genuine, loving, and caring individual he is. You've probably seen him around the Tower District, camera in hand, shooting everything he sees for posterity. Because truth lies in the scope of the storyteller, and what are photographers if not storytellers? They say that pictures speak 1,000 words. If that's true, my next guest has told 1,000 stories in 1,000 different ways. I'm very lucky to count him among my friends, Victor Trejo.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So, I mean, this is going to be one of those interesting things because this is the first show of my new premise. So basically, I'm going to be interviewing people that inspire me in some way, and then I'm going to attempt to do what they do.
Okay.
You're a photographer, so we're going to shoot some pictures at the end of the episode, and hopefully my eye...
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
Hopefully my eye doesn't stink. Right? So, what have you been up to lately since... I mean, you're not really shooting pictures all that much lately.
No. With the quarantine and everything's been shut down, since I haven't been doing any new stuff, really... it's been an opportunity to really go back and start working in on all the old stuff.
Oh, catching up on all the backlogs.
Yeah, catching up through a lot of archived stuff, and sort of paring that down into something that's manageable and something that other people could look at and understand.
Okay, so what can you tell me about the different parts of the camera? Like,
why don't you explain this to me like I am an 8-year-old?
All I really know is like lens, shutter. Is it like a button?
Yeah, okay, alright. That's pretty much accurate, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so they're, for digital SLRs, which are single lens reflex, basically you have the lens, and that focuses all the light, and it does different things to it. You've got the little mirror in here, and the mirror will bounce the light so that when you're looking through the lens, the light gets bounced by the mirror and up to your eyes so that you can see what your camera is focusing on.
Okay.
And then when you hit the shutter, right there, that little mirror will flip up, and there's a sensor on the back, and the sensor will take in all the information from the light that you're looking at, and then it transcribes that into a photo.
Okay.
So those are the big main components of it. And then the lenses, they do different things. You can get different effects with them.
Okay.
That sort of thing. But those are the big main portions of the.
We're drinking wine. We're drinking wine because it's.
Is it summer?
Yes, we have a lovely Merlot.
Yeah, that and the sirens.
Yeah. Well, you can't control the environment around you.
Yeah.
All I can do is press record and hope for the best. Is photography a profession? Is it a hobby or a passion for you?
I love it.
It's more. I think it's more of a passion than I think it's more of a passion than a profession. I've gotten paid to shoot a couple places, and that's nice. But I haven't pursued that so much. Just because I really enjoy shooting. I enjoy shooting. I like shooting people I know. I like going to places or events and shooting things there so that people have memories and things. And they're good memories for me too, so that if I don't remember where I was on a day or something, we can pull those pictures up and then I can see where I was.
Yeah, because I can, and it comes through in your photos because you can see that you're not just snapping pictures just to snap pictures. You're actually trying to tell a story of that night, and that's what I was referring to in the beginning of the episode when I was saying that your pictures tell stories. And and I think my favorite thing about your pictures is that you're not trying to make anybody look pretty.
Oh.
You know,
That hurts.
No, I mean,
Stings a little.
no. Well, I mean, I just mean that it's all raw and in the moment. You know, you're capturing the moment, not like. I mean, we'll get more on that later, but you're capturing the moment as is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How long have you been interested in photography?
Forever. Forever. Forever.
I think it's been since I was about 20 or so.
Mm-hmm.
I started doing photography. I would do photography a little bit as a kid. When I was a kid, we didn't have digital cameras, so it was too expensive to really sit down and go through everything. But I like taking pictures. And then...
Did you have those one-time use throwaway cameras?
No, we had. I mean, we used those, but we had an old film camera. You know,
Okay.
so you would load the film up in it, and then you'd shoot, and you got like 26 or 36 shots, or if you were really lucky, like 48 shots or something on a roll. And then you would take that in to a place, and you give them $10, and they would develop it, and it took them like a week to get them done or something.
Yeah, my mom had a really old timey camera. It was brown, and it there was a door on the front that opened up, and then the whole thing sort of unfolded like an accordion.
Oh wow!
Right?
Yeah.
And it was just the coolest thing I've ever seen. And I don't think they made film for it anymore at that point. But I just remember playing with it. Opening and closing it was how I played with it. You know, just
a lot of those really old ones needed like specialty film. Like they didn't sell like in a store, but you would buy like a plate or something and put it in the back, and that's how. Yeah, it would.
Those are It was really old too. You can tell that it was that it probably had a really long history.
Yeah.
What's your favorite setting or subject matter for a photo shoot?
People. I've always. When I was first shooting, when I first started shooting, I thought maybe I could shoot everything, and that landscapes were fine, and I'd get pictures of those. But I think as time went on, I really found that people are a lot more interesting for me, anyway, to shoot. I like shooting buildings sometimes, and like rooms, or the places where things happen, because that's what people are going to remember. Oh, it happened in this place. There was this beautiful garden and stuff. But really, the pictures I think that are more interesting, or the pictures that really grab people more emotionally, are the pictures of other people. And so that's mostly what I find myself shooting.
The people, I'm sure you get a multitude of situations and things that because people, you can tell so many different things, about a person just by how you see them in a picture.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah.
So,
and people are always changing. That's the other thing that's sort of interesting. There was a newspaper photographer I was talking to, and he said that when you're shooting people, you just want to stay there and just do it. Just wait, and sort of watch. And if you miss a picture, you don't worry about it, because if it's like a mannerism or something, people are going to keep doing that. You'll get another chance.
Yeah.
Which I think is actually really helpful to, if you're afraid that you're going to miss something, if you just wait there long enough, odds are you'll be able to get at least something approximating what you thought you missed.
Yeah. How do you feel about cell phone photographers, and the advancement of the cell camera technology, and where do you think that will leave people such as yourself who actually prefer actual cameras?
I will find you, and I will kill you.
I've seen really beautiful shots come off of phones, and I don't think.
Yeah, they're attracted to our smell.
The flowers in the wine.
Flowers and wine.
I've seen really beautiful shots come off of cell phones, and I think the technology is always getting better. I'm always surprised at how nice some of these pictures look. They're sharp and crisp and things like that. I think in the future, what it's really going to come down to is people who spend enough time with whatever hardware they're using, right? Whether it's a little point-and-shoot camera or something fancy, or their phones, or whatever. I think as long as people are working hard enough to develop an eye and to develop an understanding of how things are framed and when to catch the moment that people are looking for, I don't think it's ever really going to go out of style. I think it'll be sort of a bell curve where you'll have a lot of people in the middle who are, mostly taking pictures of themselves or of their food, and they might get very good at that. I mean, that's not a derogatory thing, but I think for shooting a lot of people and trying to do that well, I think you're going to have the bulk of people just not interested in doing that, even though they enjoy those pictures.
Right.
So I think it'll be sort of self-selecting.
They actually have no social media presence, or very little, almost no social media presence. What presence you do have is almost exclusively on Facebook. I'm going to show you a picture here. Will your social media presence change, and maybe you'll get an Instagram so we can get some more of this magic?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I've got time now to go through the archives. I'm sure there's plenty of stuff in there.
Just so you know, this picture is from the Summer Beer Olympics of 2013.
Mm-hmm. Oh, those are good times. Yeah. Well, yeah. If people want to pose for a photo, then that's fine. If people want to do that, that's fine. I think one of the not downsides. I think the flip side of that is that when you shoot a lot publicly, and if you're shooting a lot candidly, you also have to be very careful that if you get something and people see it and they're like, "Oh, you can't put that anywhere because I could lose my job or something like that." It's important that you take those things down, as long as you have permission.
So can you give me a little more context into this picture?
Well, I think it says it all. It's just people were drinking and having a good time. And
how late into the night was this?
This
it was like 5 minutes in.
Yeah, it's not that far in. I think I'd have to double check. I think it took like 2 or 3 hours to shoot the whole thing. Maybe. I think this is probably in the first. This might be like the first 20-30 minutes or something.
Oh my goodness.
Well, Beer Olympics, a lot of those games you're drinking pretty fast.
Yeah.
So.
Speaking of pictures that people ask you not to post, mm-hmm. I've heard of something called your retirement file.
Yes.
What's in your retirement file?
Nothing to see here, please.
Well, it's more of a joke, really. But when you shoot everything, you sometimes find pictures that are, people making funny faces, or people falling into things, or whatever, or people doing things that they don't want other people to see. So it doesn't make sense to just erase those pictures because they're still good pictures.
Yeah.
They just paint people in a really poor light.
Okay.
And so we just save those, but we don't erase them, but we don't just put them so they need to be saved in a special place, and then if you have them and you need a favor or something, that's the joke anyway, the retirement file. So, you got to be able to put things away for a rainy day.
can I have $20?
Yeah, I've got this
I've
photo.
got this photo, man.
Yeah, that's the idea of it.
Was there ever a session that you wish you could reshoot?
I don't think so. Well, okay, so nothing immediately comes to mind. That having been said, I feel like every other session I wish I could reshoot. Especially if I was shooting for a long time and something was off or didn't go well. Sometimes what ends up happening is I'm shooting really heavy for a couple of days. So I've got a whole bunch of shots. They're segmented by day or by event or something like that. And then over the next couple of days, I'll start going back through them on a larger screen so I can tell if things are properly focused or blown out or things like that. And so sometimes I get through an entire session, and I'll shoot maybe a deep session or a heavy session might be 5,000-6,000 shots. Actually, that's too much. Maybe like 1,200 shots.
Okay.
Which is
Sounds a little more manageable.
it's manageable, yeah. And as you start going through these 1,200 shots, you realize like, oh, maybe 1 out of every 4 or 1 out of every 10 is decent. And you put those away, and then you realize you only have something like 300 shots left. And so sometimes, even though those shots are great, sometimes I do wish, I wish I could have gone back, and figured out camera wasn't focusing, or I was shooting too dark or too light, or whatever.
I actually do. I do feel like I may have an answer to my own question for you. My wedding.
Oh,
Because you didn't have your proper camera.
that's true.
Because you weren't allowed to take your detachable.
They really
lens.
don't want you to take professional grade equipment into a park like that.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. So that was one thing that I actually just thought of just now.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay. So there's at least one.
There's at least one.
Yeah.
There's got to be at least that one because I remember at the end of the day you were saying it's just it's not a camera I'm used to. It's like so many different factors that were just not right for me. I wasn't satisfied with a bunch of them. But we used all of the pictures that you took because despite the I guess subpar equipment that you were using, which was our camera. You still had fantastic pictures. So.
We got a couple of good shots.
Yeah.
And that's good. That's what you want.
Among the gadgets that you own, is there something that you wish you hadn't bought?
Hadn't bought. Not really. I don't feel like I have a lot of. I don't feel like I have like a lot of big, exciting equipment, gadgets, and things. Yeah, and now as soon as I've said that, I'm like, yes, actually, there is a thing I wish I hadn't bought. There's a series of color gels.
Okay.
Basically, you figure out a way to sort of tape them over a light source, like a flash or a still light somewhere.
Yeah.
And then you have gel, colored lights for your photo shoot or something like that. I always thought that it would be a real interesting thing to do, but as time has gone on, just because of the way I shoot, the nature of the things that I shoot and the way that I shoot, I've just never found it to be particularly useful.
Most people, actually, moving on, seem to think that you just click shoot and then you're done.
And the answer is, well, this picture is worth such a lot of money because it's a picture.
They're not really aware of the post-photo session editing process. Can you briefly explain what that entails and how much time it could potentially take?
Oh, sure, yeah. Okay, so if you're working professionally, someone might hire you for a birthday or a wedding or an anniversary, something like that. So you're going to charge up all your equipment. You're going to get everything together. You're going to go there and you're going to shoot for maybe, depending on the event. If it's a long event, you might be there for 5 or 6 hours. You're shooting things sort of behind the scenes, and then you're shooting the events themselves, and then you're getting things like posed photos, portraits, candid photos of people, the dancing, cake, all of that stuff. So that's 6 hours, plus transportation there and back, let's say 7, 8 hours. That's a full day. Then you're going to need at least, let's say you shot 2,000 photos, you're going to need a couple of hours to look through all of those, because not every picture is going to be perfect. You might keep 500 of those photos, right? So 75% of them you're just going to toss. Then once you've done that, you're going to go through, usually with some sort of software, and you're going to see things. Sometimes color needs to be corrected. There's like a green cast on things, or things are too orange or too blue. People's skin doesn't look right, so you have to go in and you have to fix all of those.
Yeah.
And then a lot of professional photographers are also hired a lot of times because they do a particular type of digital processing, which is different sort of than the printing. The digital processing would be like shooting real high key things, adding sort of like blowing certain parts out and then retrieving detail for certain other things, other details in the shot.
Right.
And even when you get to the point where a lot of that is you know what you're doing, so you're not learning it, you're just applying what you know directly. It can still take several hours with that many shots to go through and clean all of them up to the point where they're going to look nice printed.
Right.
And then the third thing is, or the last sort of portion of that is, if you are a photographer and you are in charge of printing for a client, you need to look at what sort of prints do they want. So do people just want, simple 4x6 that they can put in a frame or something? Then that's fine. If they want a large 8x10 frame, like the sort of pictures you would find in someone's grandmother's house, right?
Yeah.
That has to be not edited differently, but it has to be proportioned differently, because that's a different proportion than a 4x6 or 5x7 or a poster or something like that. If you want to get them printed up in books, which a lot of people like to do, same thing. You need to go through and make sure that, okay, if the pictures are going to be this big, they're going to set on the page properly.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff that sort of goes into it that people don't usually consider.
Okay. Just to let everybody know what's going on with the change of scenery, the sun came out and started cooking us on the in the area that we were in, so we decided to adjourn to my studio just to sort of alleviate the hotness. Yeah. So, anyways, we're gonna continue the interview now. Thanks for bearing with us. My next question is actually kind of a tough one, I think. Is there a particular photographer or artist that who has inspired your work?
I want there to be, but I think the answer is no. And that's not to say that there aren't a lot of really great photographers and artists out there. I think it's just most of my work is really more like candid photography or street photography. In that sense, the inspiration is usually drawn more from the subjects. Mm-hmm. So, like a lot of the work that I did or have done, it's just more inspired by getting shots of people who are friends, people who are out doing things.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to recreate, the poses or the sort of art of another artist.
Okay. Wow. It's a lot easier to answer than I thought it was going to be. What is one tip that you would give to someone that is just starting out? Like, say they just got their first camera, they're really they're just gung ho about photography, and they just want someone that has a little bit of experience to give them one piece of advice on their journey. What would you say to them?
I'd say set the artist free. I'm talking about this artist in here. Set it free. I'm saying quit your day job.
I think the advice would be different if we were talking about 15, 20 years ago, right, sort of at what people sort of consider maybe the death of film, or where we really flipped and stopped using film so much, and we're starting to go into fully digital. I think because people have great cameras just on their phones, or if they have a digital camera. I think two pieces of advice. The first is you want to have some sort of equipment that will let you change things manually. There are a lot of cameras that will do everything for you. They're all automatic, and that's great. But if you're trying to train your eye, if you're trying to train yourself as a photographer, you want to be able to play around with the different settings so that you can explore things like long shutter speeds, or really wide open aperture, or just very narrow aperture, shutter speed, things like that. So first you want something that you can use manually, and then the second is to just experiment with that. So it doesn't have to be really a formal experiment, but just go out and shoot all the things that you like. And if you find that the shots aren't coming out the way you want them to, instead of putting it on manual, then you go back and you look at it and say, okay, well, what was wrong with it? There's not enough light, so we have to figure out how to put more light into this film. Everything's too blurry. I have to shoot at a higher shutter speed. So experimenting with things like that and using manual settings allows you not just to change the way you see or change the way you shoot, but also lets you sort of see what the impact of changing things is on your own photography, and by extension, the photographs of others. Mm-hmm. So,
interesting side question that's almost directly involved or related to what you were just saying. Longer shutter speed. So, that would be say you leave the shutter open for a really long time.
Yeah.
To get is that what gives you streaks?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or
a lot of night photographs that have the car lights that sort of streak across the plate of the film. That's a long exposure time.
Okay.
So long exposure can be for things like that. They can be for things like waterfalls. When you look at waterfalls and they're not sharp, they're very misty, and all the water is very misty. That's actually a long exposure. That all that water that looks misty is actually just a whole bunch of water that's moving through there and is moving so fast that it's not frozen in time. But the rocks and the leaves and everything around there, because those typically don't move, they come out really sharp.
Okay.
So that's something that a person might not know. How do I get everything to look really flowy in terms of water?
Yeah.
Things at night, things like if people are doing gymnastics or something, you sort of see this, a lot of times that could be sort of like a long shutter speed. and sort of flow, and maybe with like spotlights or flashes. So if you had like an intermittent flash while people are physically doing things, they're going to look kind of like a ghostly image through with these sort of pops of sharp detail every half second or
That is
second
super
or so.
cool.
Yeah, so there are a lot of different things that you can do with those, but you need to understand how the camera is actually taking the photograph, so that then you can build shots if you want to around not only those limitations but around those particular quirks.
Yeah. Wow. I have one final question. Will you take a selfie with me?
Of course.
All right. Since we're talking about pictures.
Great.
It's a good picture. I don't know what's so funny about it, but
Solid.
that actually concludes the interview. Thank you again for being here.
Well, thanks for asking me.
Yeah. So the next bit of our of the interview is so we're gonna take a picture of something. You're gonna take a picture, and I'm gonna take a picture of the same thing, and then we'll compare them and see just how horrible my eye is compared to yours.
Okay.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching today's episode. If you enjoyed this and want to see more, be sure to hit that subscription button and the little bell for notifications. Have a gorgeous day.